Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to Chef Vic Cuisine. Today, we're making super snickerdoodles. Now you may have heard of snickerdoodles before. They're like a sugar cookie with a cinnamon and sugar coating on them, but these super snickerdoodles are the best in the world. And once you try them, you won't go back to the regular ones. So, let's get started.
Alright, so for the ingredients, we're going to need 1.5 cups of chopped Snickers. And that's about 10 fun-sized pieces or 3 to 4 full-size bars. Then we're going to need 1 cup of unsalted butter, softened to room temperature. 1 1/3 cup of granulated white sugar. 1 large egg plus 1 egg yolk. 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. 3 cups of all-purpose flour, spoon and leveled. 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then for the topping, we're going to need 1/4 cup of white granulated sugar and 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Alright, so to get things started, we're going to chop up the Snickers bars first. Now, I normally use the fun size version of the Snickers bar, and I like to cut them 2 at a time. And basically, all you need to do is, starting at the top of the Snickers, you want to cut about 1/2 inch wide slices. And I use a downward pressure to create those slices. And then once you have those 2 Snicker bars evenly chopped, you want to double back and chop those pieces again perpendicularly to your first chop. And this should create those really tiny bite-sized pieces that we want. And a really good tip to make the cutting process a lot easier is I normally freeze the Snickers bars before going in to chop them. Otherwise, if you try to chop them at room temperature, they're going to melt on you the more you cut them, and that can end up being a pretty sticky process. But once you have all the Snickers bars nice and chopped up, we can place those pieces into the freezer again as you prepare the rest of the cookie dough. And it's at this stage where you can go ahead and preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit or 190 degrees Celsius. And you also want to line 2 large cookie sheets with parchment paper. And you can go ahead and set that aside for now. Now on to making the topping. All you have to do for this is add the 1/4 cup of granulated white sugar with the 1 teaspoon of cinnamon into a small or medium-sized bowl and whisk those 2 ingredients together until they're well combined. And then you can just set that aside for now. Now for making the cookies, in a large-sized bowl using a handheld mixer or a stand mixer with a paddle attachment, we want to cream the butter for about 1 minute on medium speed. Once the butter is nice and creamed, we can go ahead and slowly add in the granulated white sugar on medium speed as well until the butter becomes light and fluffy. And just make sure you take your time adding in the sugar, that way the butter can be evenly coated with all the sugar that you add. And don't forget to scrape down the sides of the bowl as well as the bottom of the bowl to make sure that all the butter gets a chance to be evenly mixed with the sugar. So you can give the bowl a quick mix again just to make sure that all the ingredients are well incorporated. And it's at this stage where we want to add the egg yolk, and we can start mixing again. And at this stage you can add the vanilla extract. And once again, throughout the mixing process, you want to scrape down the sides of the bowl and the bottom of the bowl as needed, just to make sure that the eggs and the vanilla extract has a chance to evenly mix in with the rest of the ingredients. And this mixture all combined is what I'll refer to as the wet ingredients. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified when my next video drops. And stay tuned until the end of this video for a sneak peek of the recipe coming next week. Now, in a separate medium-sized bowl, we want to whisk together the flour, the cream of tartar, the baking soda, the cinnamon, and the salt. And then whisk that all together until it's well combined, and this mixture will be referred to as the dry ingredients. Now back to our stand mixer. With the mixer running on low speed with a dough hook attachment, we want to slowly add in the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients in about 1/3 portions at a time while you whisk it. And the resulting dough will be quite thick, and you may have to knead the rest by hand once you incorporate all of the dry mixture. And to help aid the mixing process, you want to push in the sides of the dough into the center where the hook is mixing it. That way all the batter has a chance to be evenly mixed. And it's really important that you don't add the next portion of the dry mix before the previous one is fully incorporated. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a pretty dry resulting dough. And it's also at this stage where you want to pay special attention to the bottom of the bowl, because a lot of the dry ingredients will settle at the bottom. So make sure you scrape down the bottom of the bowl and make sure that that gets fully incorporated as well. So once all the dry ingredients have been incorporated into the wet, it's at this point where we can fold in the cold chopped Snicker bar pieces. And you can fold these in by hand, or all you have to do is give your mixer a quick whisk with the hook attachment. You don't want to mix this for too long, otherwise you risk breaking the Snicker bar pieces apart, and you want to maintain their integrity as best as possible. So at the very end, I like to just knead the rest by hand, just to make sure that the resulting dough is nice and smooth and all the Snicker bar pieces are within the dough. Now for making the cookies, it's a really easy process. All you need to do is take about 1.5 to 2 tablespoons worth of the dough and roll that into a ball. And then you want to roll that dough ball into the cinnamon sugar topping that we made earlier in the video. And you want to toss that dough ball in the mixture until it's well coated all around. And then you can just place the coated dough balls onto your prepared baking sheet. And you just want to repeat this process for all the remaining dough until all of the dough has been formed into dough balls and coated well and transferred to the parchment paper lined baking sheet. And you want to aim to make sure that all the dough balls are about the same size, otherwise they won't cook evenly and some of the cookies will be underbaked versus the other. And I normally use about 1.5 tablespoons of dough for my recipe, and that normally generates about 24 cookies. If you use 2 tablespoons worth, you're going to end up with much larger cookies, but not that many to share. And if you don't have parchment paper like I didn't have in this video, you can always use a silicone baking mat, or you can spray your cookie sheet with a non-stick butter-based spray. Once all the dough balls have been formed, you can sprinkle on some extra cinnamon sugar on top if you desire. I normally don't, as I find that the coating is definitely enough sugar and cinnamon for you to taste it. And you want to bake these cookies for about 11 to 12 minutes. And the resulting cookies will be very puffy and soft. So once the time is up, you want to remove the cookies from the oven, and while they are still very warm outside of the oven, you want to gently press down on them with the back of a large spoon to flatten them out. And the cookies spread a lot, so you always want to make sure that you space them far enough apart from each other prior to the baking process. And you want to allow these cookies to cool on the baking sheet for about 10 minutes, and then you can transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely before eating. And just like that, you've made my super Snickerdoodle cookies. If you're a real fan of Snickers like I am, I think this is the perfect way of incorporating them into a really tasty dessert. And one more tip for this recipe, make sure that you place all your Snickers pieces back in the freezer once you chop them. Otherwise, they'll separate too much when you mix them into the final dough. As always, this recipe and many more can be found in my cookbook, Chef Vic Cuisine Volume 1, Finding Your Inner Chef. And that's available on Amazon, and I'll be sure to leave a link to that in the description box. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified when my next video drops. And stay tuned for next week, where I show you how to make my really easy, super refreshing Rise and Shine drink. You don't want to miss this one. Well, thanks again everyone for watching, and I'll see you next week on another episode of Chef Vic Cuisine. And until then, peace.